Liquor Talk, another edition of the podcast starts now. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Liquor Talk podcast. This is season 10 of Liquor Talk, and we're the third episode in. I'm your man Victor, holding it down here in Florida. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in, whether you tune in via Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Today's episode, we got our first guest of season 10 from Podmatch. Shout out to our friends from podmatch.com. To anybody, any podcasters, any people that look to get on podcasts, join that website right now because they will help you find guests. My guest is joining me from Atlanta, Georgia, where the Black Mecca, if you will. I got author Charmaine Everly here today. Miss Charmaine, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So why don't you tell the people a little about your work and what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you again. I'm originally from New Jersey, so I am part of the problem here in ATL with all the outsiders that are migrating in, that are making it crowded, that are overpaying for homes. But I'm a native of New Jersey, and I wrote a series of contemporary romance featuring Black women and real life, real love. I know that's a tagline for somebody somewhere else, but that's kind of my story. Um, and I'm excited. Unlike a lot of writers and independent authors, I didn't necessarily grow up like always writing, having a pen in my hand, dreaming of being a writer, creating poems and things like that. My background is not at all having to do with creative arts. I've just been a lifelong reader. Like like most people, started with like the Fly Girls, the coldest winter ever back in the day. But even before that, I'm talking Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley High. I'm talking years back of loving to read. And that brought me to this journey kind of unexpectedly. My mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer um, about 2.5 years ago. And then she transitioned in 2024, and it came out of left field, nowhere, like, because the women in my mom's side of the family tend to live very long lives. I'm blessed to still have my grandmother. So, aside from us never having dealt with cancer personally, she's healthy. We take preventive care seriously. We take care of ourselves. We go for all of our screenings, all of the things. And so, um, it was really sudden. It was really brutal. And my mom and I, tight like glue, like, shout out to living single. And so, I had a forced sabbatical from work about a year ago. And I was like, I don't even know what it means to take a leave of absence. I don't even know how to stop working. I got my first job at 13 and haven't stopped since. So I just was sitting there kind of like, okay, crying every day is not going to work. How is that going to help me sort of come out of this depression? How is that going to be healthy? And so without a plan, I didn't have an outline. The story just kind of came, and it gave me like structure and a reason to get up, and like it felt like work but not work at all, right? Because it was fun, it was creative, there was no deadline, there was no target, there was no KPI, there was no dashboard. It was just fun and creative, and it really helped me through a really dark time in my life. So that's what brought me here. And it's surprising because the stories are nothing about why I started writing, right? Like, it's not about grief, it's not about, any of that. It's about love, healing, finding yourself, but more in a journey of like contemporary romance and all of the things that women, particularly successful Black women, go through in trying to navigate finding partnership and the type of love that they always dreamed of having.
Of course. First off, rest in peace to your mom. I'm definitely sorry for your loss because I know Mother's Day is right around the corner, and I know that is going to be tough for you. And I feel bad for anybody that's lost their moms out there because Mother's Day is literally right around the corner, literally like a few weeks from now. So I know that can be tough on you, but how did losing your mom inspire you to start writing novels? Because that's That's I don't know. I would never imagine that would be the inspiration to the start writing, because you would think you'd want to do that while your mom's still here, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it stopped the chase for me, right? And I remember in my career pivoting and figuring out what's the next promotion, how am I going to achieve, or what's next, really mapping out my career. Um, and I remember one time my mom was like, I gotten the promotion that brought me to Atlanta, and I was talking about what was next. And I was like, if I get to that next level, I think I'll be satisfied there. I think if I stay there and I retire there, I'll be fine. She was like, that's what you said about this one. And I was like, yeah, but then I bought a house. So now, the stakes have been raised. I need more money. And but there was something about that life altering experience that made me say, like, when is it enough? And is this something that even matters to you anymore? Um, and so not pouring that energy in, and also knowing that the things that really matter, you can't control, right? You can love God, believe, pray for those who, believe in and are a Christian and identify as such, or whoever it is that you believe in, but I'm Christian. Um, you can, like I said, plan, do your preventative care. And there's a lot of things that you can prevent. Cancer doesn't care. And so that experience left me seeking happiness in a different way that was freeing. And so even though my novels are not that, right? They're romances, truly. The idea of like escaping through fun, creative characters. I wrote a lot about shopping in the series. It's an unlimited budget, right? Like I'm writing characters. That honestly was like escapism. And so I always struggled with how much of my story to share of like, why did I start writing? Because it's like serious, right? And it's not. And then the books are happily ever after and finding love and Black women being loved and Black men finding love and being appreciated. And it just feel good.
Yes, yes. Hey, you know what? If it makes you feel good at the end of the day, you gotta ride with it. Forget whoever says what, because I know people are gonna be haters. So if that's what makes you feel good at the end of the day, and you're passionate and consistent about it, you gotta ride with it. Because one thing I've learned is people are gonna hate on you no matter what you do. So, and I know that your mom would definitely want you to do something you're passionate about. Now, I know you said you had a career in healthcare. So, how did that how did that happen? Like, because I know people in the healthcare field, they usually retire in the healthcare field. So, how did that happen? Like, to go from doing healthcare to now you're a full time writer.
So I still do both. I am not a full time writer, but claim that for me. So I still have a 9 to 5, and then writing is my 5 to 9. So I still have my day job, and I'm a vice president of clinical operations. And so it is a fulfilling job. It is fun. It is challenging. I did change companies. So the company that I was previously with, I had enjoyed nothing but success with them, but the high pressure, high stakes, being over 200 to 250 people at a regional director level, like that didn't align with my life anymore and what I was seeking. And so while I did leave for a promotion, it ended up aligning that way. It's also better balance for me. Um, it gives me, I'm not exhausted so that I do have the energy to pursue other things. Um, my grandmother, I'm still blessed to have her. She's 95. She's here with me now. She spends like about half the year with me full time. And so, how that came to be was, again, it helped me reevaluate, like, what is it that's going to be in alignment with my life as it is now? And what things can I control that will bring me happiness and peace and balance? and that previous role was no longer it. And so I would encourage people who, especially when you hit like mid-career, right? Early, you're hungry, you're grinding, you got all the energy in the world. And then you hit where like you thought that was it. And then it's like, what's next, right? Like, how do you make more money, work less, find better balance? I mean, that, Instagram, podcasts are all full about that topic, and it looks different for everybody. And for me, it was finding a job that I'm over far less people, far less clinics. Like, the budget that I was responsible for before, it's a fraction of that. It still worked out in the best case scenario because it's still more money and a bigger title. But even if it had been a lateral move, what I needed was balance. And then the writing is just fun. Like I said, it's creative. I've always been entrepreneurial minded. So that's not far outside the realm for me. Even being in an administration in healthcare is not far outside the realm, but I rambled long enough. I think I answered the question. Sorry.
No, you good. You're good. You're good. I'm definitely interested in the conversation because you're the first vice president of a corporate company to ever come on my podcast. So I'm definitely blessed to have you here. So and I'm glad you're able to find that work life balance because a lot of podcasts talk about it, but nobody's actually being about the work life balance. And trust me, I know how it feels when you're in that mid career and you want to figure out what's next and what's not fulfilling. Like sometimes you gotta just say to hell with it and leave that company and have faith that your resume can carry because you work a number of years and you know what? You should have all the experience in the world to get on with another company who is more aligned with what you want to do and wanting to help you. So it's like I think that's one thing I do like about us millennials. We're not staying at companies for 20 and 30 years like our parents did because there's a great retirement pension. No, we getting up and leaving if we have to.
It's true. And then also the stability isn't there either. Even in healthcare. I mean, I've seen hospitals close, clinics close, health plans, go out of business, lay people off. And so while you have stability in the sense of like you will likely find another role, um, it's not like your loyalty means nothing. And we also went through a really tumultuous experience at my last company where we were closing clinics, entire departments were being laid off. So, get what you need, be kind, do good, but put you first always at these companies because trust me, they're going to put them first 100% of the time. So, like I said, you don't have to be nasty or cutthroat or unscrupulous, right? We all have to be able to sleep with ourselves at night, but put you first. And that's how I lead as well with my teams. Like they need something, I'm like, you come first always. So guess what? Like the building's not going to burn down if you can't do something, so it's okay.
And that is something I honestly wish more executives, more supervisors, more people at these companies will understand. Like, look, if somebody communicates to you that they can't do something, it's not the end of the world. It ain't like they just didn't communicate with you. They just left you out to dry and not left you with a backup plan, because if they're communicating to you something happened, y'all gotta understand that shit happens in life, no matter what. But a lot of executives they don't want to
Yeah.
hear that or they don't want to understand that. It's a sad world we live in.
Yeah. And then when things happen, you have done enough good. I mean, when my performance spoke for itself, but also I had performed at such a high level for so long that when I wasn't, it still was satisfactory. I just was no longer exceeding expectations, right? And that was still okay because I had
Mm-hmm.
already, had such a track record of excellence that it's okay. And to your point, when people don't have that track record and something happens, if you're with a good leader, they're going to work with you. They're going to understand. They're going to say, hey, these are our options. But everybody's human, you know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely.
That's real. That's real. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Liquor Talk. The more you drink, the better we sound. This is a shout out to everybody tuning in, having a drink with me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you watching this. And shout out to my people that's watching this on TikTok and commenting and showing love. And also some of you people supporting the Facebook page. Charmaine, what is your favorite thing to drink when you go to a bar?
So it's interesting that I'm on this podcast. I have never in my life had an alcoholic beverage. So my favorite
Wow.
thing to drink is Diet Pepsi. Um, so now I don't have anything against drinkers. I'm not like morally opposed to it. Um, but my parents have, but neither of them have ever had a drink in their lives. And my older brother
Oh,
never had a
wow.
drink in his life. So I just didn't grow up seeing it. So, and then the representation when you go to college, everybody overdoing it. And I associated it with like bad behavior and poor choices. So that didn't look like something I wanted to participate in. And then the older I got, it was never part of my socialization. So I don't have a problem with it. I just don't drink. So it's so funny when I saw the name of your podcast, I was like, I love the topics, but I cannot participate.
No, and listen, hey, and you know what? And I'm glad you still showed up because there are a lot of people that hear the name of my podcast and they will use that as an excuse not to come on. Like, no, we don't discriminate around here. Like, listen, we can pull up the mocktails for the people that don't drink. It is not a problem. In fact, y'all, everybody listening out there, you're drinking the week. Go have you a good mocktail. Go have you a Shirley Temple, y'all. That's the one mocktail that comes to mind, either that or a virgin daiquiri, y'all. Y'all take it easy, y'all. Or you can have like Charmaine's drink and have you a diet Pepsi, because I've heard a lot of things about diet Pepsi. I heard that the diet sodas are actually worse for you than regular sodas. What do you think when you hear those kind of things, like from somebody who works in healthcare?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of scientific evidence that says that it has the same impact in spiking your glycemic index and all these things that are very scientific. Um, but ultimately, I think it depends on the person. And like if you're diabetic, drinking a diet drink is going to be better for you than drinking the sugar, period. Right. And, but drinking water is better than all of it. So ultimately, I think it's all about balance and moderation. Um, because, none of us are growing our own food anymore and boiling our own water from the spring. And so we're all taking chances and we just have to do the best we can, sort of with what's out here. I do try to make sure I drink my fair share of water, which is something that has been an improvement. But like, yeah, it's interesting. When I saw the name of your podcast, even though it's called Liquor Talk, I just thought it meant like honest talk. You know what I mean? Real talk, because they
Yes,
say, what is it? A drunk mind speaks a sober tongue. So that was how I interpreted it.
yes. I'm glad you interpret it like that because that's what we're shooting for. Because we have the honest conversations around here, whether we're drinking or we're not drinking. Because they say a drunk mind tells sober truths, and because I've seen it on so many times where people they might not be able to say something when they're sober, but when they're drunk, they gonna tell you how they exactly feel. Now we don't get drunk all the way now, but we do like to have a sip every now and then, But I've had plenty of episodes where I'm not even drinking because my guest doesn't drink. So there's been plenty of sober sessions. So
Well,
so that's
don't
why
hold back for
if
me.
so, but no, we're
It's
good
so
though.
funny
We're definitely
because
good.
I was going to say there's so funny because in my book, um, there are so many aspects around drinking in the first book. So it's a series of 3 novels called the Wrong Series. So the first book is about a successful dermatologist. She's a physician, and she's in this relationship um, with an accountant, a CPA. And, he comes from a good family. He's got a good job. Um, she doesn't have kids that she knows of. Like, all of the boxes are checked. He's reasonably attractive. He's kind. Um, but there's really no spark, right? And it's kind of like she's kind of battling with like, well, I'm at this age, I'm ready for sort of my happily ever after. Um, and it's nice enough, right? Like, yeah. And then he has a high pressure position and is under a lot of pressure, and so alcohol plays a role in that. But even just like meeting up, and there's a lounge scene and things like that. So it's interesting for me not to drink. Thinking about my writing, there's a lot about socializing and having a good time and things like that that involves around it. So I just thought about it as we were talking. I'm like, you would never know from my writing, but yeah.
That's very interesting. I'm glad the people are listening to this out there because now they get to hear this part and you being honest about it. But hey, if you can articulate it as if somebody does drink, then who cares? It's like because there are plenty of rappers who they talk about the drugs, they talk about the mollies, they talk about everything under sun with drinking and stuff, but none of them have touched a drug a day in their life. They are just playing a character right in your face. So, hey, if they can do it, so can you.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think rappers do that?
You know, I think that it's because the industry forces them to do that. It's the higher ups that are the A&Rs and the people above them who fund the industry. They want to do that to influence the young community, to influence the people who listen to hip hop and listen to the rap and all that stuff, who are very young people, because they want them buying the drugs. They want them, they want them strung out. They don't want them to be successful. It's all about the higher plan because if you strung out drugs, now you got to rely on our healthcare system to get off the drugs, and then you got to rely on some pharmaceutical companies who some of them they have secret deals to, fund their side of the deal because they're thinking like if you strung out drugs, guess what? Now I get to bill you every step of the way in order for you to rehabilitate. So they're just playing their role in a small, small chain of things. But that's here nor there. But everything allegedly though.
That's true.
so so you talk about right person, wrong time. Has that ever happened to you in your life? Because personally, that's happened to me a number of times. But it is what it is. You just fall back and keep it moving.
Yeah. Yeah. So the name of the first book is called Right Pieces, Wrong Man. The second book in the series is called Right Energy, Wrong Timing. So you kind of combine the two. But so the first one is about like, oh, the pieces of him, this person that I'm with, seem right, but like overall the man's not right. Um, the second one, yes, I have had that um, where, and I've observed it. I can't say I'm really happy in a relationship right now, so I can't say that for me that like if I had met any of those other people at a different point in time in my life that it would have been right. But I can say that like for my current partner and I, um, had we met at different times in our lives, I don't think that we would be happy and together. Meaning that there were lessons that I learned about how to be respectful and be able to follow and not be so fiercely independent as a badge of honor, right? Like I am independent. Like just let that be, let that breathe. You don't have to like prove it or ain't nobody gonna be in charge of me. And I have a great example of like a loving marriage. I grew up with my mom and dad are high school sweethearts. Um, Watching my dad care for my mom in her final, days, weeks, months, was beautiful, honestly. So I can't claim that to be my thing, but I had a lot of like extended family that had that experience, where they weren't in happy marriages. And so sort of the rhetoric of like, you can't depend on a man, you don't want to depend on a man, make sure that you're not in a position where you have to depend on a man, right? That um, that kind of fueled me to not know really how to. I've always been good at working through conflict, but how to acquiesce and not fight to be right and fight to resolve things versus fight to be right. And I think that had he and I met sooner, I don't know that I would have been far enough along in that journey for us to be able to be successful as a couple. And for him, it's interesting. I think a few things. He had a lot of things that he had to work through on his own, but one, um, being able to be patient enough to work through conflict, um, and not just be like, I'm done with it, like whatever, right? Like, got attitude. I don't have to do this. I'll choose be by myself or with the next person before I put up with this. Um, so I can say for us, I think had we met at a different time in our lives, I don't know that we would be successful. Um, so yeah, I have had that. I have had that experience. And then I've also had the experience where, a lot of people in my past, they'd be like, I can't understand why you guys didn't work or you should date or whatever. And it was like pieces, right? Good job, nice person, nice guy, good family. Y'all have fun together. But like the whole thing wasn't there, right? So I've had both of those experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, trust me, I think everybody's had those experiences, and you find ways to get through them though, because sometimes you realize that once you find that person, you realize why you went through those things, and it's just you're kind of glad that you met them when you did, because sometimes some people come in your life as a lesson, and then some people are meant to be around for a lifetime. So I definitely feel that, but I know a lot of people out here who are just tired of getting all the lessons out there, and it's like, and I gotta tell them all to like hang in there, So what do you tell the people who feel like they always meeting people at the wrong time?
It's interesting. So, I mean, I'm not married. And even if I were, it would be so new that I don't think that I'm an expert. But what I can tell you is I'm an expert at dating. Now, I done kissed some frogs, okay? And I've dated more than anybody that I personally know in my personal circle. And I've met men every way you can meet them. I've met them online, in person, through friends, at church, through work, through school, through blind dates in the grocery store, um, gym, bars, clubs. I mean, listen, okay, I have ran the gamut of ways that you can meet someone. And right before I met my partner, before my mom was diagnosed, I remember saying to my therapist, like, I'm at that age. I hope I get married and have kids. I hope it happens for me. But if it doesn't, I have a great life and I'll just, I'll learn to, I'll have to be happy with it. Maybe that's not in the cards for me. And, God has blessed me in so many other ways. And I remember one of the ways that I said I was blessed was like, I have a healthy parents. I have a great mom. And I didn't know what was coming, right? And so I remember when we were talking about, I had been passed over for a promotion at work that I very much deserved and earned. Okay. And they hired people that weren't successful in
Mm-hmm.
the role. And so that first time I was passed over, I was like, oh, they gonna learn. And I was like, it's gonna happen. If not now, it's happening. And then later in my therapy session, I said that same sentence about like, I hope marriage and kids happen for me. But we'll see. But if not, I'm hitting this age and I don't know. And I remember my therapist saying to me, um, you seem so certain and you are so sure and you make it happen when it comes to your career. But when it comes to this personal thing that you really want, like, it's kind of like maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. And why don't you take some of those same lessons and approaches that have made you successful in your career and apply it to your dating life? Baby, that was like a switch went off. Okay. I was like, you are so right. Like, she's like, you're not leaving it to chance when it comes to your career. And I was like, well, that's because I can't control it, right? Like, I can't. And she was like, but there are aspects of it that you can control. And I started approaching dating like a job. It was a second job. I had a spreadsheet. I had strategy. I was a professional dater. Do you hear me? And so I thought about my non-negotiables, which were very few. He had to want to get married and have children, because late 30s, when you start meeting people, a lot of times people are divorced, they have kids they're headed towards empty nesters, or they have actively decided they don't want children, right? So you meet a lot of people that fall into one of those two buckets. And so you don't meet a lot of people who are like, and then you meet the people that are like, maybe I do, maybe I don't, right? It doesn't really matter to me. And I was like, okay, no, they have to want marriage and they have to want children. They had to have a college degree. I'll go into that more why later. And they had to be financially independent and have enough disposable income to date. Now, Christian, respect, but like those were certain like basics for me. We had to be able to have fun together. But when I was vetting, those were like sort of like my non-negotiables. And the college was because I was meeting people in a variety of ways here in Atlanta. And one experience I'm almost ashamed to share, but I met this gentleman who was so nice, so kind. I call him S because I don't know how far this podcast reaches. But he
we'll keep it at S.
S. So he was a chef. And okay, so chefs can make a lot of money or they can make no money, right? You just don't know. And the relationship that I had just come out of some years prior, the gentleman didn't work for half of the relationship. And it was always a hustle entrepreneur. But long story short, I was supporting in every way, okay, financially. That person couldn't afford to date me, to have fun, let alone future kids, marriage. You know what I mean? Like, can you get some health insurance? Can you get some life insurance? Like, can we grow up and make grown up decisions? And so what I realized coming out of that experience was like, as I aged and as I was progressing in my career and able to do things, I met this gentleman named S, and he had just said he was a chef and he was leaving and he was going to start driving for MARTA. And I was like, okay. Now, growing up, bus driver was a good city job, city benefits, retirement. I was like, okay, all right. Now that is still significantly less than where I am, but okay, then we'll work through this. And somehow I ended up finding out that he was a subcontractor and made about $16 an hour. And at my particular age and where I was like, this will always be an issue. And that was really hard for me to admit, that like I couldn't see a future with this person and didn't want to continue dating them because financially we were in two different spaces. And I had already had an experience, right, where I was supporting and believing and investing in potential and all of that. All of the things that are controversial online, baby, I lived it. Okay. I gave, I invested, I stood by. I was like, okay, so this idea that you have, let's see how we can make it work. I built websites, like I had done the thing. And I was like, I don't have energy for that or time. Right. Like, and so, So that was why, like, the college, being able to have a shared experience was important enough. And that doesn't equal financial success or anything like that. But I was like, okay, that's a barometer that I can use. And then the kids and marriage. And then, it was, what type of dates are you taking me out on? How quickly, and I'm not one of those, like, you got to wine and dine me, but you have to be able to enjoy life at the level that I like to. We need to be able to go to concerts and vacation and eat out, or save at the same rate for the same things, right? Like, we need to be able to put house repairs, new roof, whatever it is, right? We need to be able to do things like that together. And I had reached a point where I was far enough in my career that being with someone that was more early careerist, because early careers it doesn't necessarily mean age, right? You can be early careerist at 40. And, but then what would be more aligned with you is to be with someone closer to that. And then you all can build together. What I've realized is that I would be resentful, or I would be playing down, or I would be overextending myself to do the things that I wanted to do. I wouldn't be able, I just knew that wasn't going to work for me. So I would say, to answer your question, to people who feel like they just can't find the person, be serious about it. If you are serious, if what you want is permanent partnership, because not everybody believes in marriage, I do. So I had my non-negotiables. If I met somebody online, I had like a whole system. And people told me I should write a book about that. They were like, you should sell your online system, because I've never seen anybody go at it the way you did. It was 2, 2, and 2.
Wait.
If I matched with you on a dating app, you had 2 weeks to come off app. That's what I'll call it. Either ask me for my number or ask me out in real life. You had 2 weeks. If you didn't do it in 2 weeks, you weren't serious. You was playing. Either I wasn't your first choice, or you weren't serious. You were just on this app to kind of like pass time and have people to talk to here and there, right? Or you weren't really fully single, or whatever the situation was. 2 weeks, if you're either serious or you're not. And then if you asked me for my number and you came off app, you had 2 weeks from that point to ask me out in real life. If you didn't ask me out in real life, okay, I'm cool on that. So it's actually a month, right? And I only took 3 people off the app at a time, because I didn't want to be juggling a whole bunch of people. I always had like notes in the app of how I met, when we met, like your countdown was on. Okay. And then I would also, at least twice a week, I would go to something in person. I was like, I'm not going to leave it just like online. So that year, I think the National Black MBA Association meeting was here. I was conveniently there, right? If they had fraternity conclaves, I was in the mix. If anything where I felt like I could potentially meet someone where we would have a basic things in common, I made sure that I was out and not just in the house on the app all the time. And then I would schedule dates. Sometimes I would have 2, 3 dates at a time. I would do brunch, like coffee date, dinner. I was serious. Do you hear me? I was like, I'm not leaving this up to chance. And when I was looking for a new job, I went just as hard. And when I met my partner, we matched on a Friday. We had our first phone conversation on a Saturday. He asked me out that Sunday. We met in person that Sunday. And when we finished our date, he was like, well, listen, I've had a good time. And I was like, me too. He's like, I'd love to do it again. I was like, me too. And he was like, okay, well, let's go ahead and set it up then. He grabbed his phone. And I said, okay, I am going out of town for my friend's fitness competition from this Thursday to Sunday. So just heads up that I'll be out of town those 4 days. And he lives in Birmingham. Okay, I live in Atlanta. And he looked at me and said, oh, well, it looks like I need to be coming back over here on Wednesday then. Yes, he was serious. He was serious. He was like, oh, that ain't a problem. I'll see you Wednesday. What time do you get off? And it's been wonderful ever since. And so that's my story. Again, I'm not married. I hope to be, soon, but I will say that if you feel like you can't meet anyone, are you leaving it to chance? Are you doing the things that have made you successful in other areas of your life, strategically and intentionally? Or are you just playing? Are you just willing something? You know what I mean? And so I also put it out to like friend group, like, hey, FYI, I live in Atlanta now. If you know of any great guys that you think I would be a good match with, that didn't work. Everybody said, I got some homeboys. Absolutely not. I would not recommend them. So that's my advice. And I'm just like so sublimely happy. Now I had a secret weapon. I think my mom got to heaven and told God, listen now. If I have to be up here, send somebody for my baby down there. Look at her. And so I believe that in my whole heart. Okay. So I had a secret weapon.
You know what? I'm not gonna wish that on my mom because truly I saw my mom a few weekends ago and she was asking me about my dating life and stuff, and I'm like, you could tell my mom is kind of wanting grandkids. That's why
Yeah.
she keep asking me
Yeah.
about my dating life. And I'm like, Mom, it's like, Mom, these women, they see my potential and they quick to put me in the friend zone. But that's a little blurb about me telling on myself. But you, ma'am, that's what I grew with your friends now. You need to write a whole book because you out here dedicated. You got the plans. You ain't playing around. And you met the man. It worked. So that's what you need to write a book on. I agree with your friends over here. So I do have this question though. Why do so many women waste time with men who have the potential but they're not executing on their potential? Because I hear that story a lot from different women, and then the women I come across, they're like, they seem like they kind of got that wall up because they done been through it. And it's like, I understand you've been through it, but at what point do you hold yourself accountable for giving this person the time of day who's not really executing on their potential? And instead of, you come across somebody that is executing on their potential, but then you want to give them hell.
Yeah, I think you don't want to be seen as shallow. You don't want to see yourself as shallow, especially if, speaking for myself, I didn't need a man to achieve stability, right? I didn't need that person to bring that to me where, I'm struggling by myself. And so therefore, if I'm going to be with a man, I need to do better than what I was doing before. I also knew that I was pursuing a career where chances are I was going to make significantly more than my partner. That is not my story. Blessed be. But so I think those two things allowed me to, because the previous relationship with my ex, not a horrible human being by any stretch of the imagination. Great, great, great person, terrible partner. Any way in which you can grade a partner, terrible. But great friend, right? Like, and so I think not wanting to feel like you threw in the towel, you gave up on a human, right? You gave up on someone, kind of like the story I was saying about S, right? That man was kind and consistent, and I had it at that point. I was like, I cannot, like, and I was older. I was like, oh, you're at this age and you're still sharing an apartment with your sister. And you know what I mean? It was just a lot. And so I was like, the potential needs to have been realized. But when you're in that building stage, like early 30s, right? Like late 20s, early 30s, when people are going to grad school, professional school, like, trying to figure out, trying to pivot, starting businesses, whatever it is, right? Like that's a lot of time that phase. And so if you meet somebody like I did at that time, you don't want to be seen as like I said, you don't want to see yourself or be seen as shallow or gold digging or like you're relying on a man for that. And so therefore you are like, as long as you treat me great and you're faithful and all of those things, then we can build together. And you can't love a man into success. You can't will a man into success. You can't love motivation into someone, right? You can support the motivation that they already have and the ambition they already have, but you can't like will it into them, and you will exhaust yourself trying. And so, but sometimes you feel like, did I give it everything I got? I also think that in my case, a lot of things that I put my mind to, I'm successful in. And so, again, feeling like I was giving up too soon. And then I was at that crucial stage in life where I was like, it's kind of do or die time, right? It's either going to happen now or it's not going to happen at all, which is so funny because I'm like significantly older. And now I'm like, I have time. Science has come so far, right? Like, and then I didn't believe that. So I think those are some of the contributing factors. And then for other women, not myself, not believing that it's possible, right? Like, I don't believe that I can have it all, right? Like, great career. And I think that's why so many of us get heartbroken when we see like some of our favorite celebrity couples break up. And it doesn't even have to be like entertainment famous, right? Like it could be Michelle and Barack, right? Like it doesn't have to be. I think because we're like, man, here is a successful, educated, beautiful Black woman with her, like in my case, I love Black love. So successful, love out loud, Black husband. And dang, and they couldn't make it. Dang, man. So you kind of, for some women, don't believe that, like, even for myself, my parents met in high school, right? And so I was far past high school. So it's kind of like if I get it right over here in the career, which my book talks a lot about through these characters, maybe if I have an A family, right, which was my case, that's the story for Angie in my book, A plus in family, like her parents, her siblings, A plus career, right? Maybe I'm only going to get a C. Maybe I can't have A pluses across the board. And so I think those are some of the things that I think some women think about. I can say that I thought about. But because I had been through it once, I was like, by the time S and I crossed paths, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. And I felt terrible about it. And I went back and forth, but like, should I tell him the reason? Right? Like, what do you think in that situation? If you met someone and they said, this is the reason, and it wasn't something that you could immediately change, right? Would you want to know why? Or would you want to just be like, thank you for being clear with me and not stringing me along?
I think younger me would have wanted to know why, but now older me is like, you know what? Thank you, and you know what? I wish you well. I'm not gonna sit and waste your time. I just gonna sing another one bites the dust, and what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I ended up texting. I did take the chicken way out, but and just saying like, it's not you. Here's all the great qualities, but I don't think that we're compatible for a long term. And I'm going to end our courtship. And like it kind of caught him off guard. I could tell, but I just didn't. That was the best way I could say it. I try to treat people with kindness and things like that. So, like you said, in my case, I did get to the point where I was like, okay, these are the things that, aside from the basics, right? Like love God, love your family, be respectful, be loyal, be faithful, be honest, be a good human. Those are like, to me, givens, because nobody says, I want a thief and a liar and a cheat. Nobody says that, right? So those are the basics. But not everybody was looking for the things that were important to me. And I was hardcore about like not deviating, especially because I was going so hard in so many different avenues that I didn't have time or space for like people that, ultimately like weren't good. And I met a lot of great people that it didn't work out, but they were great men. And I wish that I had friends that I could have hooked them up with when I met, like, and decided, like, my partner and I were going to be exclusive. I was like, man, there are some great guys here. Like, who do I know that I can, like, be like, hey, here's one over here. Because, yeah.
It sounds like you could have been a matchmaker or a dating coach in addition to being an author, because that's what it sounds like. That's what I'm hearing from you, like, because you done been on so many dates. You could be an author and also a dating coach as well, because you know.
Honestly, I really think that because I met with a matchmaking company. Like I said, I was leaving no stone unturned. And
I've had a couple of matchmakers podcast too, and they both were trying to recruit me as a guest as one of their clients. But I'm like, if y'all were in Florida, I would consider it. But since how one's in Texas and one's in New York, New Jersey, I was like, I don't know.
You usually have clients like all over, right?
I think they do, but I don't know. But like I said,
well, for me, it was cost prohibitive. I was like,
yeah,
if there's no guarantee, and again, I was approaching it like work, like with this, what's the ROI on this? You know, so for me, but I mean, I would encourage people to do it if that's, again, if you're thinking like, let me be serious. I met one matchmaking company that was Black, and they had a reality show for Black matchmaking, and it was cool. I mean, their approach made sense and stuff like that. Like I had nothing negative to say. I just didn't move forward with it.
So, it's definitely a lot. So I'll ask you this: why do you think so many successful men and women struggle with dating? Is it because they're trying to juggle in expectations, or is it because they're just trying to fit pieces in? Like, because I know a lot of people, if they would stop listening to everything that people say on the internet and stuff, they got to learn how to treat it like a piece of meat. Like cut out the fat and keep the meat. It'd be a better place, because there are some people that they live and breathe down with every word these other podcasts out here say. Is like, and I'm, as a podcast host myself, I'm like, look, don't live and breathe every little thing. There's some things you gotta take for yourself, and then some things you just gotta let it slide and just gotta take it with a grain of salt, because not every advice needs to apply to every situation. So what do you say to that? Because I know a lot of people out here just listening to everything.
So the first part of your question is, why do I think so many successful men and women struggle in dating? I think one, the leaving it up to chance, right? Like if you're successful and there is often a direct path in a lot of careers, right? Like I'm not in entertainment. This is the closest that I will be is Right Pieces, Wrong Man by Charmaine Everly. So I can't speak to like that, right? Because there are people where you can do all the right things and be super talented in entertainment and not necessarily be successful. But in other career paths, most of the time, if you do the things, you're going to achieve some level of success, right? Whether or not you're C-suite or, manager or whatever, that could be debatable, but you'll achieve some level of success, right? So I think part of it is like the leaving things to faith. I think also love and emotions can make us irrational. You can't be completely objective 100% of the time when it comes to your feelings. And so that's for that first part. The second part of your question, I'm sorry, remind me, because it was a 2-part question. Listening to everything that you hear online. Yeah, I look at it all as entertainment. Like I devour podcasts when I find a good one. and the hosts are engaging. They have interesting guests. And I appreciate and I feel like I learn from people. I mean, I listen to money and investment podcasts. I listen to relationship podcasts. I listen to entertainment podcasts. So, but I ultimately look at all of it as entertainment because that's how I'm consuming it. Right. I'm not using it like a course or study because it's not structured that way. And so I think, having it to spark thought and conversation, debates, and even further research, right? I think is all valid, but treating it like it is a source of absolute and a source of truth is dangerous, right? Because there's so many things like I said, let's just take the financial. I do Airbnb, and sort of the way that I got started with it was through house hacking. So I have a multifamily of sorts, and one of the units I rent out, and that was from a podcast. And I started listening and following the gentleman, and the way that he said to do it didn't quite work for me, but I started doing research, and it was like the seed of interest for me to then go off and do my own research and figure out what version of this would work for me in my life. And if it hadn't been for that podcast, I don't know that I would be in this situation. And it's been super, super successful for me in the sense of it played out the way it was supposed to and the way that I'd hoped and planned. So that's how I consume. But to your point, I've seen where people take podcasts, whether it's hosts or guests, and they treat it like it's absolute. And I'm like, oh, well, there's so many variables that are different. And even with me being as open as I am, I don't share everything, right? I'm sure you don't. So it's just, yeah, I think everybody should just take it okay, that's the spark, that's the seed, that's the plant. And now let me go on and see how or if that applies to me in my life, and do the research and have the conversations to take it further.
That's real. That's so real. I'm glad someone else said it, because a lot of people, they will live and die by what they hear on the podcast or what they hear on entertainment. And what people don't realize is them people might be in successful relationships. You can't apply that if you're not in a successful relationship, because they may tell you one thing on the platform, but they may do something totally different. You don't know what their life is like.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
That's definitely a fact. So, any parting advice you got for single people out there? Because I know you found your partner. Any parting advice you want to give to all the singles out there who cry about the dating pool all the time? Because people been having this conversation since 2025. Oh, the dating pool is this, the dating pool is that.
Yeah, I would say narrow down, again, assuming the basics are covered, right? That they're good human, right? Meaning that they're not going to be abusive, and you know what I mean? Assume the basics are covered, and narrow down your to 5 things, no more than 5 things that are absolute must have non-negotiables. I remember when I was younger, I don't know, the thing was write your list. I don't even remember. It's on all the magazines, podcasts, or it was before podcasts, but interviews or whatever the version of podcast was at the time. There was a lot of conversation about making lists and being specific, right? And not just saying, I want a good man or I want a man, right? There's a lot of rhetoric around that. And so I got really caught up in that, and would have lists of 25 things and stuff like that. It's so funny because my grandmother found one of my lists in a Bible. I wish I knew what year it was. And all the things were still true, right? Like nothing was silly or anything like that, but it was like, really, I narrowed it down to 5. So I would say like be open um, to things that maybe didn't look the way that you thought that they could. My partner lives in Birmingham. I live in Atlanta. And right away, I saw him more than I saw people that live around the corner. And that would not have been my choice to have someone that didn't live directly in my city. And so I would say, so broaden your net. I would say stay positive and put yourself in various multiple environments where meeting people is possible. And join social clubs, networking, happy hours, gyms, online. Don't do all or nothing, right? Like don't do all online or all in person. And I would ultimately say stay positive. And if you need a story of love, Right Pieces, Wrong Man, Charmaine Everly. I think that my books feel a lot like real life, in my opinion, which is what contemporary romance is. But there's also like street literature and urban literature and things like that where, it's really sensationalized, and I love that too. Don't get me wrong. There's soap opera to your point where it's like a heavy drama. Mine is like, this could be you and it could be me. And it could be to the point where I had to tell people like, it's not my story. It's not about me. And it's not. And so, yeah, if you're looking for some positive inspiration, I'd encourage you to read my book.
So when is the book coming out?
May 23rd. It is available for pre-order now. If you are in the Metro Atlanta area and you're listening, I am hosting an exclusive and free literary and lifestyle mixer on release day. May 23rd is also Memorial Day weekend. It is the month my mom transitioned to heaven. It is also my birthday month. So there's a lot of like meaning behind why I chose to release it at that day and that time, and why I'm having a birthday book launch celebration. So if you go to Instagram, Charmaine.Everly, or you go to CharmaineEverly.com and you go to events, you can register for the event. Registration is required, but it is free, and it is going to be a great time. It is at a restaurant and lounge. It is exclusive. Will be the only party in the building, and you can get an exclusive signed copy there.
As much as I would love to be there, because it's like I'm in Tampa, Florida, but it's like you can't win for losing with traveling, because you got TSA. I've seen the Instagrams and the TikToks of getting through TSA through the Atlanta airport, and they're saying it's 5 and 6 hours. People will be missing their flights and stuff. And then people will say, "You live in Florida, you could just drive." Y'all forget one thing: them damn Georgia State Patrol, they love Florida tags. They love to hit people from Florida with them speeding tickets, man. Listen, so if things align, I could make it happen. I haven't ruled it out, because I got some
Listen,
people
it's Memorial
already
Day
trying to get me to come
weekend.
to
It's going to
Atlanta.
be, yes, it's going to be so fun. And yeah, you're in Florida. You can make a long weekend of it. Like there's a lot to do that weekend, and I would encourage. And it's upscale. You can't beat free 99.
Yeah. I could make my mom jealous because when she lived in Atlanta, I told her I refused to go. That's personal reasons for another. That's another story for another day. Y'all, if y'all get me on a podcast, I might go into detail of why my mom could never get me to come to Atlanta to come see her, and why. That's a personal story, y'all, for my listeners out there, my insiders, my inside people. I don't even think I told my close friends why I've never really wanted to collaborate in Atlanta, but that's another story for another day. So, is the book gonna come out on Amazon Kindle as well?
It is. It is. It's available for pre-order now. And then later in the year, I do hope to have an audiobook. Producing audiobooks is expensive. So, yeah. Yeah. So it'll be all platforms. It's like Barnes and Nobles, Amazon. You can get it directly from my website. It's available for pre-order now. If you get it from my website, you get a free gift. But Amazon is free shipping. It comes to you, and yeah, it's available on Kindle. Yep.
Yes, yes. Lastly, why should people make the investment into your book series?
Yeah, I think that you will find inspiration. You will feel good. I also feature a lot of real life Black brands in the book. And at the end of each book in the series, there will be introduction of different Black luxury brands. And so I wanted to make sure that I highlighted those because, economic power is real and representation matters and spreading the word. So I think that ultimately you'll enjoy it, you'll be entertained, you'll feel good about it, it'll be uplifting, um, and you'll be able to support others and continue to circulate Black dollars.
Of course, that's always important. Gotta continue to circulate them Black dollars within the Black community. Charmaine, I want to thank you for blessing the Liquor Talk with your presence. Whenever the next book releases, you just let me know because I might be in Florida, but I'm always a DM away. So when the next series of books drop, you just let me know when, and we can collaborate again if you like.
I would love that. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Hey, I enjoy having you on, and thank you for coming on. And thank you to Podmatch for providing this beautiful guest. By the way, thank you to my people at Podmatch, and thank you to the listeners for pouring up for this episode of Liquor Talk. Please tell us what you think. Please go ahead and tell a friend to subscribe. Tell a friend to take a shot with us, and if you don't drink, have your drink a beverage of your liking and take in this podcast. You have been listening to the Liquor Talk podcast. We are pushing for 400 episodes. We're taking over for the 26th and the 27th. Peace, y'all.